The quantum neural implant in my sister's brain was shutting down, and with it, the last traces of her consciousness stored inside the abandoned Nexus facility. I stood frozen in the cavernous server room, my headlamp cutting through decades of dust as the emergency power flickered overhead, illuminating rows of forgotten technology that held the only hope of saving what remained of Ellie. 3 days ago, I'd received the encrypted message that changed everything. Maya's consciousness transfer incomplete, backup degrading, 72 hours until permanent deletion. The message had come from a ghost account linked to Nexus Corp, the tech giant that had promised revolutionary consciousness preservation before mysteriously abandoning their headquarters 15 years ago. My sister had been their final patient before the company vanished overnight, taking with them the technology that might have saved her from the neurological disease slowly erasing her mind. Now, I had less than 6 hours to find her backup and transfer it, before losing her forever, before losing the last chance to tell her. I was sorry for not believing her when she first discovered what Nexus was really doing beneath their gleaming corporate facade. The facility sprawled beneath the overgrown ruins of what had once been Silicon Valley's crown jewel. Vines crawled through broken windows, and nature had reclaimed the outer buildings, but deep underground, the backup generators had kept critical systems running on minimal power. I followed the maintenance tunnels according to the schematics I'd pieced together from leaked documents, my urban exploration experience finally serving a purpose beyond documenting forgotten places. Each step took me deeper into the complex, past laboratories where dust-covered equipment stood in silent testimony to abandoned innovation. In the third sublevel, I found the first sign that I wasn't alone. Fresh footprints in the dust led to a hastily closed door, behind which I discovered a makeshift camp. Someone had been living here, monitoring the systems. A journal lay open on a cot, filled with technical notes and a single name that made my blood run cold. Project Lazarus. The same project my sister had mentioned in her final coherent days. The journal's last entry was dated yesterday. Final subject's neural pattern destabilizing. Cannot maintain connection without original encryption key. Someone accessed the emergency beacon. They're coming. I need to hide. Who was this person? Were they trying to save my sister's consciousness or erase it completely? I pocketed the journal and pressed deeper into the complex, following the network cables that ran like veins through the facility. The air grew colder as I descended, my breath fogging in the beam of my headlamp. The silence was absolute except for the occasional drip of water and the hum of distant machinery. Then I heard a faint melody playing somewhere ahead. Ellie's favorite song, the one she'd hummed while working in her lab at Nexus before her diagnosis. Someone was leading me forward, or setting a trap I couldn't afford to avoid. The music led me to a sealed chamber marked Neural Archive. The massive door stood partially open, its security systems disabled. Inside, server racks stretched from floor to ceiling, blinking with active data transfers. And there, at the central console, stood a figure in a faded Nexus lab coat, their back to me as they worked frantically at the controls. I raised my flashlight, heart pounding. "Who are you?" I demanded. The figure turned slowly, revealing a face I recognized from Nexus promotional materials. Dr. Avery Chen, the brilliant neurologist who had pioneered the consciousness transfer technology before disappearing along with the company. "You're too late," Chen said, voice hollow with exhaustion. "The deletion sequence has already begun. Your sister's consciousness is fragmenting across the network, unless..." They gestured to a neural interface helmet on the console. "Unless you're willing to go in after her." I stared at the helmet, understanding dawning with terrible clarity. Chen was offering me a chance to enter the digital space where my sister's consciousness was stored, to find her in the virtual landscape before her data degraded completely. But the risks were catastrophic. If I failed, my own mind could be trapped in the collapsing digital environment, both of us lost forever. The system was never meant to host two consciousnesses simultaneously. Chen explained, eyes reflecting the blinking lights of the servers. But it's the only way now. You share DNA, similar neural patterns. You might be able to locate her core memories and guide them to the stable partition before everything collapses. I looked at the countdown on the main screen. 4, 37, 12 remaining. Why are you helping me? I asked. Chen's expression darkened. Because I'm the one who trapped her here in the first place, and I've been trying to free her ever since. The neural interface felt cold against my temples as Chen calibrated the equipment. Once you're inside, you'll have to find her quickly, they explained. The environment is deteriorating. Follow the strongest emotional signatures, those will be her core memories, the ones keeping her intact. I closed my eyes as the system powered up, feeling a strange tingling at the base of my skull. What if I can't find her? Chen's voice seemed to come from very far away as the interface activated. Then at least she won't die alone. The world dissolved around me, reality peeling away like old wallpaper to reveal something else beneath a digital landscape constructed from my sister's memories, already fracturing at the edges. I opened my eyes to find myself standing in a perfect recreation of our childhood home, though the edges of the rooms seemed to blur into static. Family photos lined the walls, but the faces were distorted, degrading into pixels. Outside the windows, instead of our old neighborhood, there was only an endless void of code and fragmented data. I called Ellie's name, my voice echoing strangely in the digital space. No response came, but I noticed a trail of glowing particles leading upstairs to what had been her bedroom. I followed, each step sending ripples through the unstable environment. The door to her room was covered in the posters and stickers I remembered from our teenage years, but they flickered and changed as I watched, cycling through different periods of her life. When I pushed the door open, I gasped. The room opened not into her bedroom, but onto the Nexus research lab where she'd worked before her illness. The lab was a chaos of activity, populated by memory ghosts of researchers working at equipment that phased in and out of existence. And there, in the center of it all, was Ellie, or rather, a version of her from before her illness, vibrant and focused as she manipulated holographic brain scans. I called to her, but she didn't react. This was just a memory, not her consciousness. But as I watched, I noticed something strange. Ellie was secretly copying files, looking over her shoulder nervously. She was stealing data from Nexus. The memory shifted suddenly, showing her confronting Chen in this very lab. "You're not saving these people," Memory Ellie shouted, holding up a data drive. "You're imprisoning them. The transfer isn't preserving consciousness, it's harvesting it." Chen's memory self looked stricken. It wasn't supposed to be this way. The board changed the protocols without telling the research team. We thought we were offering a second chance. The memory began to destabilize, the edges of the lab crumbling into code. I had to move on. This wasn't where Ellie's core consciousness resided. I followed another trail of particles through a door that shouldn't have existed, emerging into a digital recreation of the hiking trail where Ellie and I had spent our last day together before her condition deteriorated. The memory was vivid, saturated with emotion, the autumn leaves impossibly bright, the sky a perfect blue. And there she was, sitting on our favorite overlook, looking out at a view that faded into digital noise at the horizon. This Ellie turned as I approached, her eyes widening in recognition. "You came," she said simply, her voice exactly as I remembered. "I've been waiting, but the memories keep slipping away." I rushed to her, trying to embrace her, but my hands passed through her form like smoke. "I'm not really here," she explained sadly, not completely, just fragments holding on to the most important memories. The landscape shuddered around us, trees glitching out of existence before reforming. "We don't have much time," I told her, explaining Chen's plan to transfer her to a stable partition. She shook her head. "It won't work. I'm too fragmented now, but I found something, hidden in the system architecture, the reason Nexus really shut down." Before she could explain, the memory collapsed entirely, the hiking trail dissolving into a swirling vortex of code and light. I was thrown into darkness, disoriented and afraid I'd lost her completely. When the environment stabilized again, I found myself in an unfamiliar space, a vast digital library with shelves stretching infinitely in all directions. Each book, I somehow understood, contained a complete human consciousness that Nexus had preserved. I moved through the endless stacks, calling Ellie's name, watching as occasional books dissolved into nothing consciousnesses, finally breaking down after years of digital half-life. At the center of the library stood a massive structure like a digital tree, its branches connecting to each shelf, feeding data back to a central trunk. And wrapped around that trunk, her form flickering between her healthy self and streams of pure code, was Ellie. "They weren't saving people," she said as I approached, her voice fluctuating in pitch and clarity. "They were feeding off them. Each consciousness they uploaded became part of their neural network, a living processor. They built their AI using human minds as the foundation." She gestured to the tree. "This is the core system. I infected it with a degradation virus before they uploaded me. That's why they abandoned the facility. Their network was collapsing. And they couldn't stop it without revealing what they'd done." The entire library shuddered violently, books tumbling from shelves and dissolving. "The system is failing," Ellie said, "and I'm failing with it, but I saved the others. I gave them peace." I reached for her, desperate. "There has to be a way to save you," Chen said. Ellie's form stabilized momentarily, her eyes meeting mine with sudden clarity. Chen lied. "There's no stable partition. They sent you in here hoping you could stop the degradation virus. They're still trying to save the network, not me." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. I hadn't come to save Ellie. I'd been manipulated into trying to save the very system she had sacrificed herself to destroy. But as I processed this betrayal, I noticed something Chen hadn't mentioned. A digital connection between Ellie and myself, a glowing tether linking us together. The DNA connection. I whispered, understanding dawning. Chen said we had similar neural patterns. Ellie's eyes widened. The transfer protocol. It was designed to map one consciousness onto another compatible structure. She grasped my hands, and this time I could feel her touch. "I can't leave this place. I'm too integrated with the system now. But my core memories, what makes me, those could transfer to you. We could share your mind." The library continued to collapse around us, the degradation accelerating. "Would that even work?" I asked. She smiled sadly. "It's either that or I disappear completely. At least this way, some part of me survives." Time was running out. The digital environment was breaking down faster now, huge sections of the library vanishing into the void. Ellie guided my hands to the glowing tether between us. "Focus on your strongest memories of me," she instructed. "Create a pathway." I closed my eyes, concentrating on our childhood, our hikes, our late-night conversations, every moment that defined our bond as siblings. The tether brightened, widening into a tunnel of light. Ellie's form began to dissolve, streams of her consciousness flowing through the connection into my mind. With each transfer, I felt new memories integrating with my own, her research, her discoveries, her final days at Nexus. "I won't be me anymore," her voice echoed, growing fainter, "but I won't be gone either." The library gave one final shudder and began to implode, the digital space collapsing in on itself. "Go," Ellie's voice commanded, now coming from inside my own thoughts. "Get out now." I gasped, awake in the server room, the neural interface helmet falling from my head. Chen stood over me, their expression a mixture of anger and awe. "What did you do?" they demanded. "The virus, it's accelerating." Around us, the servers were shutting down in sequence, years of stolen consciousnesses finally finding release. I stood unsteadily, feeling the strange double, awareness of Ellie's memories now intertwined with my own. What she wanted, I answered, my voice overlapping with an echo of hers. "I set them free." Chen lunged for the main console, trying desperately to salvage the system, but it was too late. The neural network was collapsing completely, the emergency lights shifting to red as backup power began to fail. "We need to get out," I said, already moving toward the exit. "This entire facility is going to shut down." Chen remained at the console, fingers flying over the keys in a futile attempt to save their life's work. "Everything I built," they whispered, "all those minds." I paused at the doorway. "They weren't yours to keep." I said we said, and then I was running through the darkening corridors, guided by Ellie's knowledge of the facility's layout. The journey back to the surface was a blur of failing systems and emergency bulk, head sealing behind me. Ellie's memories guided me through shortcuts and maintenance tunnels I would never have found on my own. As I emerged into the overgrown ruins of the Nexus campus, the ground shook beneath my feet, the underground facility collapsing in on itself, burying its secrets forever. I made it to the perimeter fence just as a final power surge sent a shockwave through the abandoned buildings. Standing in the safety of the surrounding forest, I watched as 15 years of technological hubris disappeared into the earth, leaving nothing but a cloud of dust and debris. In the days that followed, I began to understand what had happened to us. Ellie's consciousness hadn't transferred completely. Instead, her core memories and personality had integrated with my own, creating something neither fully her nor fully me. Sometimes I would find myself remembering events from her life with perfect clarity, or suddenly understanding complex neurological concepts I'd never studied. Other times, I would feel her emotional reactions alongside my own, like watching the world through two sets of eyes simultaneously. We weren't two separate people sharing one body, but rather a new consciousness formed from the merger of siblings who had always been close, now closer than humanly possible. Using Ellie's research knowledge and the evidence we'd gathered from the facility, I began to piece together the full story of what Nexus had attempted and how close they had come to creating a new form of digital slavery. Other former employees came forward, and gradually, the truth emerged about the corporation's secret experiments and the brilliant researcher who had sacrificed herself to stop them. The technology for consciousness transfer was lost with the destruction of the facility, but perhaps that was for the best. Humanity wasn't ready for such power, not when profit and control could so easily corrupt its purpose. 1 year after entering the abandoned Nexus facility, I stood at our favorite hiking overlook, watching the sunset paint the valley in shades of gold and crimson. I felt Ellie's appreciation for the beauty alongside my own, a bittersweet harmony of shared experience. We were neither fully alive nor truly dead, but existing in a state no one had ever experienced before. There were still difficult days when our merged consciousness struggled to reconcile different memories or emotional responses. But there were also moments of profound connection that no other human could comprehend. In saving what remained of my sister, I had transformed myself into something new, a living testament to the bond between siblings and the lengths we would go to for those we love. If this story of technological wonder and human connection resonated with you, remember that the most advanced technology will never replace the power of human bonds. The future may bring wonders we can't imagine, but it's our connections to each other that truly preserve who we are. Share this story with someone whose memory you would fight to preserve, and subscribe for more explorations of abandoned places where the future was born and forgotten. Some ruins hold more than just the past. They contain warnings and wisdom for the path ahead. And sometimes, the most important discoveries aren't found in abandoned technology, but in the depths of our own hearts.